Okay, so welcome everyone on this very sunny Tuesday. Thank you for joining this webinar about brand positioning. Roel and myself, we're going to be your hosts of today. And the objective of today is really to demystify brand positioning. We'll explain to you why brand positioning, why brand strategy is a priority for your top management, for the CMOs, for the CEOs. We'll give you lots of examples. We'll put it into practice, give some client cases in order to inspire you with fresh ideas that you can use for the brands you're working on or for the challenges you may encounter. I already said it, but on a very practical note, use the chat. We have a Q&A at the end, but you can always ask your questions. Don't hesitate, and we'll have some polls to stimulate a little bit the interaction, and it might give us some nice learnings that we'll publish at the end also of the webinar. So let's kick off. First of all, who are we? So my name is Sarah. I'm a consulting manager at the House of Marketing. And I can describe myself as a passionate business marketeer. I'm very passionate about the impact that a brand can have on your business, but also on the customers. As a consultant, I'm quite a late bloomer, as I can say, as I gained the majority of my experience actually in corporate life, where I worked for more than 11 years for L'Oréal, where I had the opportunity to build, launch, work on strong brands going from Garnier, Maybelline, L'Oréal Paris. And as a consultant, I had the opportunity to discover other sectors going from pharma, food and beverages to the energy and mobility sector. But I think the one thing that was sure that I always worked on projects concerning brand and marketing strategy. And I guess that's also my professional why, my eagerness to help brands and to help companies create a strong brand and marketing strategy that creates impact, is customer-centric, and that supports also your business P&L. And I also have the opportunity to work with very nice colleagues. Roel, he came all the way, and it was a bumpy road. He came all the way from the Netherlands to Brussels to talk with me about brand positioning. Roel?
Thank you, Sarah. I'm Roel. I worked for many years at flowresulting, and recently we became part of the House of Marketing, which is great because we can even more expand our expertise. For the last 4 or 5 years, I've been more focusing on brand positioning. I even went to Australia by the great Mark Ritson to get an MBA in the brand positioning. And through the years, we helped a lot of companies with their positioning challenges on brand positioning, but also business positioning. And I think that's a nice way to move on to the next slide. We start with positioning as a priority for the C-suite. So it has to be a priority at the highest level at the organization. And the first reason why it is so is because, I go to the next slide. Make it even more exciting. First reason is because it's all about strategy. It's the long-term strategy for a company. And we often explain it with this framework you see on the left, because you have different levels of positioning. It's really good to know if you do a process at the company, at your client, that you know that they also know what's in it and what's in it not. What are the preconditions for brand positioning? Now let's start at the top. We often talk about business positioning. And really, business positioning is about in what markets do you want to play? What is your strategy in these markets? Is it customer excellence, or is it product innovation? Now you can think of more strategies, but that's the first decision you want to make. So, what markets do you want to play, and what is our strategy in those markets? And also means that you have to know, but how many brands do I need to be successful in these different markets? And it's all about the brand architecture. So that's the first step. That's not brand positioning, but that is business positioning. The second layer you see in the model is the brand positioning. And that's all about, if you choose a brand for a specific market, you want to know how to win in this market with your brand. So And brand positioning is all about what do we want the customer to think and feel when they think about our brand. And so it's really from a customer perspective, what do we think what is the intended brand image? And you see at the left, both are long-term strategy. And this brand position is for many, many years, same as for the business positioning. If we look at the lowest level, the operating position, it's all about how to bring your positioning to life. And you see at the circles at the left, it has to be aligned with the different levels of positioning. When you think about operating positioning, you mainly think about the marketing communication, the campaigns. Sarah's again helping me with the slides. Very good, Sarah. Thank you. But if we go dive a bit deeper into brand positioning, it's also the guiding principles for a lot of things in the company. Not only the marketing communication, but also for product development, distribution, pricing, HR. So it's really about finding the guiding principles for your company for many years to come. So that's one thing. We're going to explain it a lot more in a few seconds, a few minutes. But first, I want to say one thing more about brand positioning, it's about delivering. And you see here the nice basketball player from the 90s. Yes, I've seen him play, so yes, I'm very, very, very old. But this is Carl Malone. And why did I put a picture of Carl Malone over here? Because Carl Malone, his nickname was the mailman, because he always delivers. And so Carl Malone was known as the basketball player who always delivered. And that also is very important in brand positioning. You always have to deliver on the position you've chosen in the long run. And what you see in reality is a lot of times that there comes a new CMO or a new marketing director, and he wants to reposition the whole company. But what you see, if you do that too often, you get a schizophrenic brand. And so the customers don't know anymore what this brand stands for. And if you do that, you lose a lot of brand equity. That's a nice bridge to what Sarah's going to tell you. But for the last thing we want to get noticed of. Yes. I don't know what we're doing with the slides. No, not leave. Oh, great. Fortunately, we see the brand strategy is, according to a lot of CMOs, the most vital marketing capability for the marketing department. But they can say it's important, but the crux, of course, is not just saying it's important, but acting on it. So we're really curious what the situation is at your company. So we have a poll on the next slide. So I would like to give you your input on the poll on the chat. How does your company consider brand positioning? Is it considered really important, or is it not really considered at all, of something in between? And we look later at the results. The
poll.
So Sarah, you're gonna tell us a little bit. There's the poll.
You want to just look at the back office?
I think everybody is busy with the poll.
All right. For this moment, we have, all right, nice, 40% important to top management. All right. It's better than I would have expected. Okay, let's see. We have to. Okay, that's actually a nice. There's 42% that says that it's considered very important by top management, and 39% that it's synonymous with marketing. So actually, good results. Then let's go for the 40% who only says that it's synonymous with marketing, and for the other ones, let's give you some more power in leveraging the importance of brand positioning, and we'll demystify it via 5 core principles that we'll discuss in the coming minutes. And the first one is being the acknowledgement that a strong brand is one of the most valuable assets of your organization. This is really the foundation. And when you talk about the value of a company, I think this is what Interbrand does best in their best global brands report they report every year. Long story short, for the ones who do not know Interbrand, they were the first company to have actually created a brand valuation methodology. It's based on 3 pillars, not too complicated. It's first of all what is the financial performance of your product or your service, what's the role of the brand in the purchase decision, and what is the brand's competitive strength, being the ability to create loyalty and future growth. What I really want to say here is not the entire value all these brands, world-leading brands give, but it's really the fact that Apple, Google, Louis Vuitton, that all those world-leading brands, they do not start with product, but with brand as a critical growth asset and engine. And these world-leading brands, they've actually achieved their iconic status because they know what the influence of a brand can have on their business. They know that actually a strong brand, first of all, avoids the commodity trap. That a strong brand can provide strategic direction, provides the best talent, and makes you able as a company to retain talent, as well as a strong brand will provide you access to new markets. Let's deep dive in the first one, who really says like a strong brand avoids the commodity trap. It gives you the opportunity to distinguish yourself from the competitors and asking for a higher price. It makes sure that you don't only play on the specific features, but you have a brand to leverage. And certainly when competition increases and you don't have a brand to leverage, what will happen is that your distinctiveness will be gone. You will only have your price to play on. You will lower your price. Your margins will be lower, and you will come into a negative virtual spiral, and the risk, of course, for your business then is big. On a very funny anecdote, Louis Vuitton. Everybody who says Louis Vuitton now thinks as the most fashion, like a luxury fashion player. But actually, Mr. Vuitton in the 19th century, when he started his suitcase or trunk company, he didn't start it as a luxury brand. He more started as a commodity. And when actually production costs increased, he saw the need for branding. And I think ever since, the whole commodity story for Louis Vuitton has been history, because of course, for the ones that saw it in the previous Interbrand report, they are in the top 20 world-leading brands. And this is what we see often, that many brands start as a commodity and then after the branding comes after it. Another nice example to compare brand and commodity is the definition of a brand equity, where you take your brand and you do minus the commodity. Here, an example of Coke, you take the brand of Coca-Cola minus sugared lemon, you get the brand equity. And as we all know, brand equity here is huge for Coke. But on the other hand, when you leave out the brand, then suddenly all the value in the eyes of the consumers, it goes away. I think it's an old example. Everybody knows the blind test between Coke and Pepsi, but it's a true story. If you leave out the brand, it just becomes a commodity. On the other hand, the second very important thing to know about a strong brand and the power of it is that a strong brand provides you strategic direction for all strategic and tactical choices. And it also gives you a lot of power on the labor market to really get the best people and to retain them. It's an obvious example that I'm going to give here. Sorry for that. But of course, could not do it. L'Oreal is a strong. It's a group L'Oreal. It's not the brand L'Oreal Paris, but it's really the branded house of L'Oreal. Has strong brand equity rooted in science and innovation for years. That was that's their strength, and it always have given them the power today and in the future to be a beauty company. But they can go beyond that. They now are positioning themselves as a beauty tech company, and that drives their strategic directions into a whole other level and world of beauty tech, launching AI solutions in skincare or personalization technologies online for makeup. So it really, the science and innovation can be translate it in a new direction. And it gives me actually the opportunity to jump into the last power of a brand, which is actually the access to new markets. Just like L'Oreal now can go into a tech market, you see that a lot of successful brands now make their profits in other categories than they originally started. Obvious examples are Apple or Google, but also Coolblue that we know from it's the e-commerce player that we all know from Alles voor de beste glimlach. They now are launching themselves in the Coolblue energy sector. So it really gives you the access to new markets. So I think it's the foundation is strong. A strong brand is one of the valuable assets of your company. But for your brand positioning, one thing is sure: you will need to.
You need to find the sweet spot and dare to choose. And we're going to talk a bit about this one. Because if you want to be everything for everybody, you will end up being nobody for anyone. So it's really about finding the sweet spot and choosing, and also choosing what not to do. Here is our great positioning friend, Mark Ritson. And he says the secret of a great brand is that it can define its brand up to 4 words. The depressing reality is that most brand positioning fails before it even leaves the gate because it's too complex. And that's also what we see if we come at different companies. You see they make a lot of words, a lot of slides about brand positioning, but if you ask people in the company what does this brand stand for, they come only up with their slogan mostly. So and he says, you should put your brand up to 3 or 4 words. It sounds simple, but it's really complex, because try to describe a brand in 3 or 4 words, and it's not the slogan. So I will give a little example to illustrate this. Here you see Pringles. It's one of the cases we did in Australia. And you see the slogan is, once you pop, you can't stop. But this is not the positioning of the brand. It's just the slogan. Like we told you before, it could be more about operating positioning, the slogan, but it's not the brand positioning. The brand positioning for Pringles is about 3 words: playful, irresistible, and different. And if you look at these words give a lot more direction than just once you pop, you can't stop. And you see in this ad, you see that it's playful. The popping is about irresistibility. And only the can is already different, but they want to be different in many ways. The chips are also different. So it's the guidelines for this brand to be different. But yeah, it's easy to say if you have an example in front of you, but how do you find these 3 words, 4 words for your company? And so how do we capture this? Now, we have a framework for this, and we'll lead you to it in a few seconds when I see my. I think I have to look at different screens. That's why I'm it's not working all the time. I'm sorry. First, we look at the left. It's first we begin with diagnosis, and you look at the positioning from different perspectives. You first look at customer relevance, what's really relevant for the customer, and also what do they associate the company as it is in the current situation. This is how do you think about the company as it is right now. And if you look at the left, it's also about the company identity. It's also what's in the DNA, the heritage, what are the strengths of the company. You also want a picture of that. And of course, you look at the competition and how does the competition positioning itself, and what are their strengths, and from a customer perspective. And of course, we look also at the trends, the cultural trends, but more important, the long-lasting cultural trends. Just not the trends that's what's in it right now, but what we see is really relevant for the business we're in the long term. So that's also a thing we look at. And then in the next phase, if we got a real sharp diagnosis, we're gonna look for the sweet spot. And so what are the benefits we really want to position on? And that's where the benefit ladder you see there comes in place. So we want, what we often see at companies, it's a lot of inside-out thinking, but we want to translate it to benefits. And what are all the possible benefits that could be of interest for the customers? That's what we want to find out. And if we find out all the possible benefits, then we're going to converge that to select the benefits where we can outperform our competitors. And so we can be relevant, differentiating, and it is also in line with the strength of our company. And we often do that with different techniques. And you see that in the below. And we use the desk research, interviews within the company. We do team analysis, qualitative research, and in the last phase, we use quantitative research to validate and to make choosing a lot more easier. I will tell them more about in a few seconds. Yeah, I can do it. Next slide. Just to let you see how it works. A case we did for IPP. I don't think a lot of you know this company, but it's a large international company, and they're in pellet pooling. So they're all over Europe, and they asked us to help them with their brand positioning, because they wanted one brand for all over Europe, because in the years they bought different companies that are now part of IPP. And you see on the right, I just want to tell, and so for you to be sure that we really slam dunk this positioning challenge. But a bit more context about the situation of IPP. It's good to know that in this market there are only a few players. There are only four players in this market, and one had nearly 80% of the market. So that's CHEP. That's the really large brand in this market, and IPP was very much smaller. But what we try to do is make being small more of a power, a strength, than it is something that you don't want to rely on. So I'm going to take you through the positioning that we chose for IPP. The 3 words, they're also on the website, so I can show it to you. The 3 words we came up with after we done all these steps I described are easy to work with, high standards, and go the extra mile. If you look at these 3 domains that we want to claim, you see that also on the left you see more functional benefits, easy to work with, high standards, and go the extra mile is more about an emotional benefit. As a customer, you want to feel important. And we want to give them that feeling, and that you're very important for us, and we try harder. Avis, the rental company, says we are second. That's why we try harder. That's a campaign from years ago, even before I was born. It's real long ago. Sorry. And if we look what the creative agency did with this positioning, this is a result of it. If you look to the right, you see different negative things in working with large companies. In this case, they mean CHEP, but they don't say it directly on the right. But on the left, you see a nice wordplay, time for a new chapter. So they really challenge the chapter because they have to win markets from the large player, the 80%, and they say the new business comes from CHEP. So we're really going to focus for a lot of years to more focus on CHEP to be a real challenger. So that's just one example of how it could work out. Now it's of course very interesting to see, because you already think it's very important by top management, but can you also describe, not you, I think you can do it if you're interested in branding, but can everybody in your company describe the positioning of your company in a few words? Now we're going to look later what it will do. So I think here's a lot more to win if I look at the poll who's filling.
We're going to leave the poll running, and we'll share it at the end. But already interesting things to see.
There's work to do, I think. So I'm going to tell you a bit more about, I already mentioned the customer benefits. I'm going to dive a bit more into it. First of all, but I already introduced the benefit ladder, and it's a framework we often use when we work with companies, because I already told you a lot of companies are more inside out thinking than really thinking in benefits for customers. So when we asked IPP, why would they buy your products, or why will they be with you for the pellet pooling? They often say, it's about the quality of our pellets. They're extra thick, they have high quality, that's why they choose us. But you can position on quality pellets, because if you only position on that, it's much more easy for competitors to do the same thing. So to copy it. So if you go up in the ladder, you say, quality pellets, what does that lead to? That leads to less hiccups. And what's the real benefit for the customer? Your logistics will be more smooth. And if you go even higher, then you say, I have less worries because the logistics are great because I work with IPP. But you have to do a lot more than just the quality of the pellets. So that's an exercise we often use to, this is only one product feature, but we work towards a total framework of different features that become benefits. So you see on the left side, it's just work in progress that we used at IPP. So that's why it's not confident. But you see only a few features here, but it's the translation to advantages and benefits. And we want to go to the right side because we use that as input for qualitative research and later on for quantitative research. So in short recap, if you look at the ladder, at the feature advantage benefits ladder, the benefit ladder, you see that the purpose is to move up in the ladder. But the general rule is higher on the ladder is better, because it's harder for competitors to copy that. It's harder for them to copy less worries than to copy quality of pellets. But if you go high on the ladder, you have more. It's harder to make it credible. And so you need better proof, you need more proof. You can't say you don't have worries because I have quality pellets. You need more for that. So you have to be in finding the right spot. You have to look for what's the best level for us to be, that gives enough guidance for the future. And it's where you're going to work through. But it also has to be has a lot of space. You can develop more proof into the future, and that's why you have to mix it. And now Sarah's going to tell you something about why we're not looking for world peace.
Yes, no, indeed, because there is a risk. If you climb too high on the brand benefit ladder, you can risk to dive into some aspirational promise, or swan, as we call the world peace, that actually is super far from your customer reality and super far from your product. And then you really risk a lack of relevance, a lack of credibility, and also a lack of distinctiveness. An example that I can give here is, for instance, if you look at Starbucks, maybe there are a lot of fans of Starbucks here in the group, but their mission is to inspire and to nurture the human spirit. The problem here is that it lacks relevance. It goes way too far from just sipping a latte, and it also lacks credibility. Why should Starbucks, I think everybody is concerned about the human spirit, but why does Starbucks needs to say that? It's not necessarily a multinational that needs to tell them how to achieve it. And especially for younger people, and this one is an important one. If you target with your brand Gen Z, this is really an important one. They're super critical to what you claim as a brand. You need to be careful with this. On the other hand, one example that I really think is aspirational and is inspirational from a brand which started climbing up the ladder way too high and then came down is actually Dove. We need to rewind 17 years ago because that Dove, at that point, they wanted to really face the dark side of beauty. We know that at that time, and even now still, in the beauty industry, we have these beautiful bodies, beautiful faces, and actually they wanted to break barriers and they wanted to they wanted to claim the target of real beauty. And for that, they had a brand campaign, and the insight was, stop judging yourself so harshly. Their creative agency went into a room brainstorming about all these creative ideas. Beauty has a million faces, and one of them is you, was one of them. Give your beauty wings, or let's make peace with your beauty. But actually, women, they were not at all impressed. When they asked feedback and they tested it, they found all these ideas super patronizing. Why Dove needs to say that they need to stop judging themselves. It was a real stop-down approach that was rather very distant and way too theoretical. So they went back in their brainstorm room and they went back to actually their positioning, which was realness. They wanted to claim realness. And that, of course, as from then, I think everybody knows this campaign for their very known hydrating cream as tested on real curve. And this positioning and this slogan is really a nice example of how you really go from a product tested on real curves to a very aspirational but very good real curves positioning. So this is one of the examples that I wanted to give you into the brand benefits, but be aware of what not to do. The fourth principle is about validation.
Yes. I can tell you a little about this because we do that a lot at our company. And what do we mean with quantitative validation in this context? I already discussed the steps before. We want to have all the possible relevant benefits for the industry that you're in. And to make good choices, you want to validate it with quantitative research. And what we do in that is that we just let customers rank the different benefits. If you have different target group, you will need different target group that rank the benefits, but you can make better decisions then. Dus first of all, they're gonna rank them, but they also you're gonna score them on how well do you perform on these benefits. And this how do you as your company perform on these benefits, but also the competition. How does the competition rank on these benefits? So if you got that insight, you see the picture on the left, then you can see on which benefits we are strong and on which benefits we can outperform our competitors. And it makes it a lot easier to choose between what benefits you have to position on for the long term. And another thing we do in the same validation is that we also look at present or future proof, and it's a lot about the features that you have in your company. What's really important to become in the stated benefits that you want to choose. So why we do validation? Two main reasons: better decision making, but also a very important reason that you have a lot less discussion in the organization. So it increases the support within the organization for the benefits, the positioning that you choose. One example where we did this validation as a part of a large positioning project we did for Bulls Rental, also a European company, and they wanted one positioning they could use in all the different countries where they're active. And on the right you see an ad that's about an article that's about the choices they made based on the research that we helped them with. And a few very interesting insights came out of that research. One of the main things was that everybody thought, especially salespeople, say it's all about price. And they want low cost, it's all about pricing. But if we look at the research, it wasn't even in the top 3 of the purchase criteria for hiring equipment. So that was one great insight we used in the definite positioning. And what we also saw in the research, that it was the benefits about finishing the projects with as less hassle as possible, no matter the challenge, was far more important. And we also spoke to different customers, and one said, in construction, projects never run as planned. So we have to be flexible. You have to help us to keep on moving. So based on the positioning that we did and based on the research, we came up with a positioning, and they already translated it to a pan-European campaign with Bulls Keeps You Going as a result of this. Sarah, you have another example.
Yeah, indeed. I have another example, which is actually, I think at Bulls, we really showed how validation can help you. Here, I cannot say the name of the brand, but it's an example where in the meat industry, it was a certain brand that was convinced to have found a compelling position, but sales didn't follow. They looked at the 4C analysis. They did it. What are the customer needs? Good taste, price, quality, the competition. They looked at their own DNA. They had so much expertise in the area. They came from a butcher's family, a very good heritage. They looked at the competition, little or no differentiation, and they saw the trend was local producers in a short chain. Transparency, sustainability, this was going to be their thing. They actually created a new farm locally in Belgium, and they were going to be very transparent on all the ingredients, etc. So positioning local, transparent, and delicious, because they had over 100 years of expertise. New packaging, a price a little bit higher, of course, but because production costs went up, and a complete new brand communication. Nevertheless, it didn't work. Why? Of course, they had some qualitative insights, but they didn't validate the priorities of the customer needs. Because actually, and this is something we see in different areas, certainly on the sustainability aspect, that consumers say that they're concerned about sustainability, but once the price goes up, actually, the driver goes down. And this is actually, unfortunately, an example where if they had validated it and maybe did a conjoint pricing analysis, they would have seen that actually the sales would not follow their positioning in this case. All right, so validation is key. A new poll that you can give us your answer. We're super interested about your answers on this one. Do you use the technique of validation for brand building? Go ahead. We'll let you fill in the poll, and we'll continue actually with the last principle in brand positioning, which actually one of the last that we're going to talk about, and it's more about the execution phase. Within the hierarchy, it's about the operating positioning, and it says be disruptively consistent. One thing is true: brands will win when they do two things. First of all, they execute their positioning steadfastly and consistently without exception in all the touch points within their whole activation strategy. Secondly, they will win when they break some of the central rules of the industry and they can disrupt the category. Very easily said. You will win if you are disruptively consistent. The example that we're going to give is an oldie, but it stays very, very relevant, and it proves it all. It's the one of Staples. I don't know if you know Staples, but it's an American office retailer. I really know it from the stapler. At the time, it had the widest range of office supplies at the lowest price, and they were really known for that. But the competition was increasing. Remember the commodity principle we said in the beginning. There was Office World, there was Office Depot coming into the market, and they were forced to reposition them. And at that time, their CMO decided with the team to claim the positioning of making buying office products easy. That was going to be their new positioning. No price, but making buying office products easy. And they translated that within their whole activation strategy. They had a tagline, Staples, that was easy. Then they launched an easy button. You can look it up on Google. If when you say easy button stapler, it really became a symbol for the brand. All their insights were based on Staples, rescues you from office products hell and makes it easy. And they even had activations where entrepreneurs could invent the next office product. So this is the normal, consistent way of doing your marketing strategy. But the thing that really made the difference for Staples was the fact that they disrupted the retail category. They wanted to make the Staple in-store retail experience easier. They really wanted to walk their talk on their positioning, and they broke with a retail standard at the time, and I think it's still one of the retail standards, where you put all your best-selling products at the end of the store, so a customer really has to pass all the aisles. buys some other products, and then comes back with a panier which was really a lot bigger than they initially wanted. But they really wanted to walk the talk, so they moved all their best-selling products in the front of the store. It was a risk because they could lose all the add-on sales, and which would happen because the add-on sales dropped, the panier dropped. But in the end, they won the bigger battle, and they won in value because they could actually be the bigger brand, and they differentiated themselves. And even now, so many years afterwards, if you look in their brand tracker, they are known really for the easiness, and they're a rock brand within the office area. So it's a really nice example of how you could be disruptively consistent in your execution phase. So I guess here we have been talking through the 5 core principles. We're almost arriving at the end. We wanted to take you through some of the main takeaways. What do you take away with you on this very sunny Tuesday, June the 13th? First of all, what are the learnings from our polls? The first one was actually a very good one. I guess if I look at the polls, when looking at the, you can see it. I think you can also see it in the chat. But when you look at how does your company consider brand positioning, 46% said it's important for top management, and only 34% says it's synonymous with marketing. And the other two are just 11 and 9%, which is a nice result, I guess. It's then top of mind, so that's good. Not the problem. Now, but if we then look, can you describe your positioning in 3 words? Do you dare to choose? Then we do see that almost 50% you will get a lot of different stories. So it's important, but maybe difficult to really grasp it and say what your brand positioning is. And then if we go and look to the validation part, do you use the technique? If we look at the group, we see that 37% says we gather qualitative insights from our customers, but we do not validate them quantitatively. 30%, and that's for me, like 30% know we have little or no insights. Work mostly on gut feel. 20% we validate, test new products, but not necessarily in the branding part. It's also often we see that in innovation they test it.
Much more used.
Yeah, much more used, not in brand positioning. So I guess there is some work on my brand positioning and certainly on validating it. So to wrap up, what do you need to remember from this session? There are 5 key principles when you start your brand positioning track. First of all, the foundation. You need to know that a brand is one of the most valuable assets of your organization. Once you start in brand positioning, it's about finding the sweet spot, and you need to choose 3 or 4 domains only. Focus on customer benefits, but avoid world peace. And then validation, as we have seen in the poll, not very often used, but it actually increases the chances of success, and it makes decision-making in convincing management why you choose something much more easier. So an important one. And then lastly, challenge your agency to be disruptively consistent in your execution. Something you should also take away from this session is definitely the hierarchy in the positioning. I think it was one of the first slides Roel showed. It is important to see that there are several layers in positioning, and in the House of Marketing, we have a framework which is called the Brand and Positioning House, which we use when building brands, and it's quite easy. You start with the foundation, which are your insights. I think research and the insights are always the foundation. You have your business positioning. On that, you have a second étage of your brand positioning, and then the top, of course, your brand. And that is the positioning. That's actually the house is your brand brief. This you can give to your creative agency that will then do your operating positioning, will bring the brand to life. Don't hesitate. We have this canvas on our website. You can also find it in the ebook. You can download it. Don't hesitate. And the last takeaway of today, not going into detail because Roel already explained it very clearly. How do we approach a brand positioning track at the House of Marketing? There are 3 big steps: diagnosis, you start with that. There's no question about it. Then you go into defining the customer benefits, not going into detail. And then in the third way, you select the domains and you validate them. And then, of course, in the fourth, normally you have how you bring it to life. And then you have also your marketing strategy that then will come out of it. But it's the track that it's the steps that we're used to take in these kind of tracks. If you really want to discover more about how we do it, have some little bit more of theory, you can go to our website and you can download our ebook. It's a guide to winning brands and positioning strategy. Don't hesitate to download it. I hope you can find some very interesting parts in it. And if not, you can always contact myself or Roel. Send us an email. We can do a little chat. We can just a coffee chat in Teams or even longer. Don't hesitate to contact us in any case. And then I think we're actually at the end, and we can now go over to the Q&A. Very nice. In timing. Let's go, and we have 2 questions. Oh, Lina. All right. She said, can you please elaborate more on flow resulting? And then also one more question about sustainability as a customer benefit. Is it too easily assumed that consumers will pay more? What else needs to happen? Well, maybe you can remove flow resulting.
Okay, yes, sustainability as a consumer benefit. Now, we do a lot of research on willingness to pay, and we often see in qualitative research, and we have done dozens, we have seen in qualitative research, yes, sustainability is really important, but if we do conduct a conjoint research, and then you can measure if they really want to pay for it, and often it's not the case, because most of the time, sustainability is not the core competence of the reason why they hire the product or the service. It has to be good, it feels good, but it's not the reason why I buy particular products. And always there are also always brands that are in it, but most of the brands, it's not their core business. Does that answer your question?
I don't know. All right,
yeah,
and then
I think
you explained the flow resulting part. No?
Could you please elaborate on flow resulting? On what we do? Yes, we help companies with building propositions and propositions they are willing to pay for. It's not easy. It's easy to put more value in it, but it's a lot more complex to get people to pay for the value you put in it. So we help them with the value proposition, but also with the positioning, that it's one of the phases of a value proposition. Yeah. But if you look at the website, you'll see a lot of more information about how we can help you.
And then we have one: is brand positioning less important in B2B versus B2C? I guess no.
No. We work for different companies, and also you see in research that it also is for B2B very important, because you in B2B you really have to trust your partner, and brand is one of the tangible things that provides trust for customers. So yeah, it's really important, as well as in B2C as in B2B.
Yeah, I think the Bulls example that we showed is really one of them. And I think often in B2B, they're really product focused. But when looking at how your brand can really differentiate itself towards the customers, it really makes a difference. And I think Bulls is a nice example of that. Okay. Okay. Lina, thanks. Okay, all right, noted. That's maybe good for the post that we can make. Thank you, Lina. Any other feedback, other questions? We have 3 minutes left before we can all go for a very sunny lunch. Within the hierarchy of positioning, do we need to first finish your business positioning before going to the brand positioning? Is it in a sequential flow?
Yeah, normally it is, because when we start a project at a company, Sometimes the question is help us with the brand strategy, but of the brand positioning, but the business positioning is not in place. So we first have to clarify that and to get a real clear picture of what the business positioning is before we go over to the brand positioning. Otherwise, you come up in a lot of different discussions that are all about business positioning and not about brand positioning. So you first need a good brand positioning, and then you have to
business
positioning. Sorry.
But it is, I guess, if you have your brand positioning, sometimes there's a link, and sometimes there's a need to at the longer term to adapt your business positioning or to look at the proof, because you're within your business positioning, you have your value proposition, your architecture, and sometimes
it's if both are still sharp, and that's not always the case, but if they both are still sharp, you just have to more focus on build better proof to leverage on your positioning. And that's mainly the largest challenge, that if you have a good positioning, the main challenge is to be consistent on the positioning. And you already told us about disruptively being consistent on the brand.
Okay. Then I think if there are no other questions, really drop us a line if you want, and if not, we wish you a very pleasant sunny afternoon. Thank you very much for joining us, and see you soon.
Thank you. Bye-bye.